Hey everyone, Gaijin here, and welcome back to another Gaijin Perspective, and oh boy, is today's topic and my take on it gonna be a bit of a doozy, because from what I understand, cosplaying as we know it may soon be illegal. Now let me clarify that statement. I've been seeing a whole bunch of articles over on both Kotaku and the Japan Times where the Japanese government is thinking about changing the copyright law to where professional cosplayers will have to pay royalties for the characters that they are cosplaying. And the big worry behind that is just how far is that law going to extend? What constitutes a professional cosplayer? Is there going to be a financial threshold associated to it, or just people who cosplay really good and get a big social following? But here's the thing, that is not going unaddressed. Minister of Cool Japan, Shinji Inoue, yes that is his title, has stated the importance of letting people cosplay for fun versus cosplaying for profit. To quote the man, "To further promote cosplay culture, it is important to have an environment which people can feel safe and enjoy themselves." Which, yeah, I'm super down with. Then, at the same time, Taro Yamada, member of the Liberal Democratic Party's Research Commission on Intellectual Property Strategy, has suggested creating some kind of database that allow cosplayers to get a hold of copyright holders so that there's no mess, no suing, and everyone's happy. And to quote him, "We need a framework that will protect both cosplayers and creators." And again, I can get behind that. But here's the thing. I only have so much knowledge about the cosplay community, how much money they make, how big it is, yada yada yada. I definitely have friends who cosplay professionally on places like Patreon or OnlyFans or any other kind of subscription service, but in my now 9 years of doing YouTube, I've learned a lot about how copyright actually works, how it technically works, and how both people and companies react to it. And as far as I can tell, what is going on with this possible new law and the cosplay industry, it's basically the same. Based on what I've seen going on right now with the cosplay industry and this legal threat to them, it is absolutely not unlike what's been going on with YouTube and social media for the last decade. Here's the thing, not every company is going to force this kind of copyright policy. We've seen on both the anime side and gaming side of these industries that they all differently have different takes when it comes to things like YouTube and social media. While some gaming and anime companies have been really cracking down on fair use, companies like Capcom and Nintendo, surprisingly, have been embracing it more and more because they understand that at worst, they're going to lose a little bit of money for someone who's basically giving them advertising, or someone who's giving them essentially free advertising for a product that they're trying to create. Compared to a multi-million or multi-billion-dollar industry, some guy who's making $10,000 a month is just really a drop in the bucket. And how do I know that not every company is going to enact this copyright law? Doujinshi. So, for those of you that don't know, doujinshi are basically fan-made comics that are oftentimes made very well, industry standard almost, and then are sold at different events or online or different stores. They're basically fan-made works that have been sold. Now, here's the thing. I've seen a lot of different people say that while doujinshi does violate copyright law, it's not theft per se. It's more in the spirit of celebrating the particular brand or different characters or story or whatever. Now, what apparently separates this theft from this celebration is the fact that, for one, when it comes to doujinshi, all of the characters, though recognizable, are completely hand-drawn, and all of the different stories are completely unique. So, again, it's more of this idea of, well, we're not really ripping anyone off, we're simply celebrating these things that we love so much. But I'm sorry, that dog ain't gonna hunt, Monsignor! How is cosplay theft and doujinshi isn't? How can one legally distinguish fan celebration from copyright infringement gained income? And I don't say that as a slight against doujinshi creators or cosplayers. I say that because if property owners and copyright holders do believe in this idea of celebration spirit through doujinshi, which has been done and celebrated for decades at this point, then how is cosplaying technically theft and doujinshi isn't? Because here's the thing, doujinshi can make a whole lot of money. And if you don't believe me on that, just look at Comiket, or Comic Market for short. Happening twice a year in Tokyo, Comiket pulls upwards of 750,000 people. And based on what I've read, quote, thousands of circles have made nearly 200,000 yen during Comiket of 2009. That's a little under $2,000. And this was before the explosion of popularity of the anime industry between 2009 and now. when back then it was probably worth about 1,254.2 billion yen versus 2,152.7 billion yen, almost double. And that also doesn't take into account doujin that's sold outside of Komiket. Places like Melon Books and Mandarake have huge selections of older doujin, so there's more money being made there, and that also doesn't take into account any online sales that these doujin are currently making. Look, I personally believe in transformative fair use, which doujin is, but how is cosplay not? I mean, look, I understand that cosplayers have made a ridiculous amount of money. Inako, a cosplayer mentioned in some of these articles, was said to pull $90,000 a month for their cosplay shoots, merchandising, and the other things that they do. But I ask again, how much money is that to a multi-million or multi-billion dollar anime industry or company, and how much of that money is actually being made due to the character being cosplayed and not the cosplayer themselves? I mean, for crying out loud, look at Jessica Nigri. Jessica Nigri does amazing cosplay shoots, and I'm pretty sure she makes a pretty decent chunk of change. But here's the thing, she does a plethora of different characters, both joking and serious, and people love her for that. It's not necessarily about the characters that she's cosplaying as, but rather the spirit that she personally puts into the cosplay herself. And here's the other thing, she makes all of her own costumes, none of it's store-bought. She doesn't cut corners. So let me ask this, what is different between Jessica Nigri and things like doujin? Jessica hand makes all of her different costumes, and she puts her own different spin on them as well as her own personality in them, where doujin is also completely made from scratch with completely different stories for all these different characters. How are these two not the same? I mean, you can even go so far as to say that the popularity of different cosplayers simply for who they are, not what they cosplay as, is exceptionally similar to the different circles that make different kinds of doujinshi. I know for a fact that there are a lot of different circles who are exceptionally popular. When it comes to Komiket, all of their stuff is sold out almost immediately. Now tell me, is that because of the particular characters that they're using in their works, or is it because of the quality and legacy that they have with their works? This can't be about money, because if it's deemed that one kind of copyright use is okay and the other isn't, when they are so similar, they both have to fall under the same qualifications. The only way I could see cosplay being subjected to these kinds of laws and doujin not is if there's some kind of financial threshold. That has to be made very, very, very specifically, or else this just doesn't make sense. And not only that, this is going to create a huge amount of backlash, and I mean a huge amount of backlash. We've seen this before. When Nintendo were going after other people's YouTube videos, either slapping their own ads on them or taking them down completely, there was a humongous backlash against Nintendo. And over time, Nintendo started to come around and allow people to create transformatively, and everything's fine, at least as far as I can tell. If companies and copyright holders go against different cosplayers, that's going to appear horribly hostile to the community of that particular fandom. It's going to create a humongous backlash. Now, am I saying that that is legally what should happen? No, but realistically, that is what will happen. I understand the need for copyright holders to hold on to their own copyrights, but to make such a blatant, just hard line cutoff of you either need to pay or we're going to fine you for using these characters in an expressive way that you are choosing to do with your own handmade costumes and own take on the character, it ain't gonna work. You're gonna have so many people feel attacked. And meanwhile, professional cosplayers, they're not gonna care. They're gonna go to another company with another brand who don't care about them using their copyrighted characters. This is what happened online with YouTube and gaming. When Nintendo started really crunching down on YouTubers who were using their game footage, they simply went to PlayStation or Xbox or Steam or just other games. There's a lot of options out there, and like I said so many times before, cosplayers are not popular because of the different things that they cosplay. Cosplayers are popular because of their creativity, the emotion that they put into all the different works. It's them. It's not their costumes. Their costumes are a vehicle, sure, but the thing that people actually love about the cosplayers that they like is the personality that they have. Or, I guess, their body type. I mean, let's be real here. That's why a lot of people follow a lot of different cosplayers, but it still doesn't deter my point. It's not about the copyrighted characters. So people are just going to pick up and leave. You are not only going to piss off your own community by doing this, but you're going to be giving so much more attention to other companies, other copyright holders, other franchises, other animes, games, etc. because they don't care. They're not going to care. So all you're doing is just shooting yourself in the foot at this point. Look, I'm not saying that copyright holders shouldn't protect their IP, because I definitely know from a legal standpoint, if you don't protect your IP, you're going to be really hard-pressed to prove in court that someone who actually does rip off your stuff, your content, your IP, it's going to be really, really hard to defend. But it cannot be this cut and dry anymore. With the advent of the internet and the advancement of the cosplay community and the explosion of popularity of the anime industry, it can't be that simple. There has to be more attention being paid to how things should be and how things are actually going to be. That's my whole point. I'm trying to be real. I'm trying to be a realist with this situation. If companies go after cosplayers, professional or not, depending on how much money they make, they're going to be hurting themselves in the long run. That is just the honest truth of what will happen, sociologically speaking. It's not necessarily about it's not necessarily people stealing an IP saying that it's theirs. A cosplayer will never take someone's IP and say that it's theirs. That's not what they do. It is, in itself, exactly like how Gaijin is, a celebration and love of a character or a series or a game. That is what it is. Cosplay, in this instance, is absolutely no different from the doujinshi that's been existing for 10, 20, 30 years. It's been around forever. I just cannot understand how there's a distinguishment between these two things. But what do you all think? Do you think that IP holders should be setting up legal protections against cosplayers who use their characters for buku bucks? Or is this a bit of an overreaction and there needs to be more thought put into this because doujinshi's been a thing for such a long time? I don't know. This is just my hot take on it as an outsider looking in. Although I will say that this is a subject matter that is going to be hitting us outside of Japan. This isn't just going to be professional cosplayers that are going to be subjected to this law. It's going to be us. It's going to be people like Jessica Nigri. It's going to be like a bunch of my other friends who have subscription-based services that create their cosplay photos. I don't know. I just think that this is going too quick. I've read in these articles that they're supposed to come to some kind of deliberation by March. That is not enough time. There's got to be more thought put into this. Otherwise, there may be some awful backlash. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and thanks for watching. And until next time, this is Gaijin, signing out.